I stood in my kitchen, clutching my coffee mug so tightly I thought the porcelain might crack in my hand. The late afternoon light spilled through the window, painting long golden lines across the table where my daughter Emily sat. She was glowing, cheeks still flushed from the wedding 2 days ago. The soft cream of her dress, replaced now by casual jeans and a cardigan. She looked so young, so happy, so sure. Beside her sat Nathaniel, my new son-in-law. He leaned back in his chair, with the kind of comfort that didn't belong to a guest. One arm lazily draped along the back of Emily's seat, as though staking his claim. His smile was wide, polished, too perfect, the kind of smile I had seen before in men who wanted something. And then, with a flick of his wrist, he slid an envelope across the table toward me. It stopped just inches from my mug. I didn't touch it. I didn't even blink. "This is just something to make things easier in the long run," Nathaniel said smoothly, his voice honeyed, but with an edge I didn't miss. "You know, legal stuff, asset alignment, future planning." Emily nodded eagerly, her eyes shining the way they always did when she thought she was part of something important. "It's just a formality, Mom. Nathaniel's brilliant with finances. He's setting up a family trust for when we have kids. You understand, right?" My stomach twisted. The envelope was thick, too thick, yellow legal paper pressed together, notarized, clipped, the kind of paperwork that carried weight. And the worst part, the envelope had my name written on it in neat block letters. I kept my voice steady. "And what exactly does this require of me?" Nathaniel's smile didn't falter. He picked up his plate, stacking it neatly, as though he were doing me a favor. "Nothing much, just your acknowledgement, your estate, your future holdings, rolled together. It will save us all time later. Just take a look when you can." He spoke like this was routine, like it wasn't strange at all. To hand your wife's mother a legal document days after saying vows. Emily's face glowed with pride as she looked at him, unaware of the storm forming behind my eyes. They stood together, Nathaniel brushing crumbs from the table with his hand, moving through my kitchen like it was already his home. "We're off on the honeymoon tomorrow," he added casually. "But this will keep things clean for when we get back." I didn't answer. I didn't even nod. I just watched them leave, my chest tight with a silence I knew was dangerous. When the front door clicked shut, I reached for the envelope with trembling hands. I tore it open, and the words blurred as I read. A financial agreement, drafted as if I had already agreed to place part of my assets into a new family trust, conveniently managed, of course, by Nathaniel. He had no idea what he was reaching for. No one did. Not even Emily knew. After my husband died, I had inherited $7 million, and thank God I had told no one. The next morning the knock came early, 9 a.m., sharp enough to rattle me. I had barely finished my first sip of coffee when I opened the door. It wasn't Emily. It wasn't Nathaniel. A man stood there in a charcoal gray suit, too crisp for his age, which I guessed was late 20s. He carried a black leather briefcase, his hair slicked back with precision, his smile polite but empty. "Mrs. Collins?" he asked, extending his hand like this was a friendly visit. I nodded but didn't take it. Something in my chest warned me to stay still. "My name is Carter Doyle. I'm representing Nathaniel and Emily Hastings regarding an urgent financial arrangement." The sound of my daughter's name with his last name attached hit me like a stone to the chest. Emily Hastings. She hadn't told me she had legally changed her name already. Or maybe Nathaniel had decided for her. Either way, the casual confidence with which he said it made me tighten my grip on the doorframe. "My daughter's name is Emily Collins," I said flatly. "She didn't change it." For a split second, his expression faltered, but then the smile snapped back into place. "Of course, my mistake. May I come in?" "This won't take long." Every instinct told me to slam the door in his face, but curiosity, and something sharper, the need to know just how deep this rabbit hole went, made me step aside. He walked in like he owned the place. I watched him set the briefcase on my dining table, the same table where Emily had done her high school homework. where I'd once braided her hair before dances. Now a stranger was spreading glossy legal folders across it like a dealer laying down cards. "This contract," Carter began, clicking open his pen, "is what we call a precautionary measure. Nathaniel and Emily have decided to combine their financial futures. Naturally, this includes any immediate family holdings that could benefit the trust." I didn't sit down. I crossed my arms and stayed standing, watching him like a hawk. He didn't seem bothered. "Emily signed this document yesterday morning before leaving for their honeymoon. Nathaniel, requested that you add your signature before week's end. That way, everything is processed before their return." My eyes narrowed. "Before they get back?" He nodded smoothly. "Yes, it's really just a formal acknowledgement of the family alignment. Nothing complicated." "Cut the fluff," I said coldly. "Show me the section about the money." His hand hesitated for the briefest second before he turned the contract around and pointed. "Section 7.2, Parental Estate Disclosures and Pre-Inheritance Trust Structures." In plain English, they wanted me to pre-declare every large asset I had. They wanted to know if I was hiding anything. I nearly laughed. They were sniffing for my $7 million. And the signature above my line, Emily's, slanted, rushed, like she hadn't even read it. I pressed my palm flat against the table. "Tell Nathaniel he'll have to wait. I don't sign anything without my own legal team reviewing it." The lawyer's polite mask slipped for just a second. Then he gathered his papers, nodded, and left. As the door shut, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The game had begun. By the afternoon, I had Daniel Hayes on the phone. Daniel had been my attorney for years, one of the few people I trusted after my husband passed. His voice was calm, steady, the kind of tone that steadied me when my own chest felt like it was caving in. "Something's off," I told him. "Emily just got married, and suddenly there's a lawyer at my door asking for pre-inheritance disclosures. They're circling like vultures." He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you want me to review the document?" "No," I said firmly. "I want you to draft a decoy." Silence hummed on the line. "A decoy?" "Yes, something that looks official. A financial summary bub that says, 'I inherited only $260,000. Create a false paper trail, tax filings, a modest transfer, maybe a small account, with just enough to be believable, something Nathaniel can sniff out.'" Daniel exhaled. "You want to make it look like your husband left you little, that the estate was eaten up by debts." "Exactly," I said. "I want Nathaniel to believe he's chasing scraps." I walked to the bookshelf as we spoke, my eyes drifting over the framed photographs. Emily, in her graduation gown, my late husband smiling at her from the crowd. My throat tightened. "You remember what happened after the funeral, Daniel? When my husband's brother tried to claim the estate?" Daniel gave a low laugh without humor. "Hard to forget, sus." He waved around forged documents, swore the house was his. "That was my first lesson," I said quietly. "People will always try to take what isn't theirs. I won't let Nathaniel do it to Emily." By the end of the week, Daniel sent me everything I'd asked for. The documents were immaculate. A false inheritance disclosure that looked perfectly ordinary, unimpressive. The kind of thing that would bore a thief. The digital trail was subtle, but traceable. Just enough to bait someone arrogant enough to believe they'd uncovered a secret. I placed the folder on my desk, open, casual, like I'd forgotten to put it away. Then I sat in the quiet of my house and waited. 2 days passed, nothing. I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe Nathaniel would back off. But deep down, I knew better. On the third night, the message came from the bank. A flagged attempt to access one of my older joint accounts. The balance? Barely $5,000. Not worth touching unless you were looking for something bigger. And the name used for the login wasn't Collins. It was my maiden name. Only 2 people had ever known that detail. My late husband and Emily, which meant one thing: Nathaniel was digging. And Emily, whether she realized it or not, had given him the shovel. I didn't sleep the night the bank called. I sat in my study, with only the desk lamp on, staring at the fake inheritance folder Daniel had crafted. Nathaniel had taken the bait. Now it was only a matter of time before he tried again. But I didn't want to wait. I wanted to see his face when I handed him crumbs instead of gold. So I called Emily the next morning. My voice was light, casual. "Sweetheart, why don't you and Nathaniel join me for lunch when you get back from your honeymoon? My treat." She sounded delighted. "Oh, Mom, he'll be so happy to hear that. I knew you'd come around." "Yes," I thought grimly. "Happy, for now." 3 days later, we sat at a quiet garden cafe Emily had loved since she was a girl. The place was serene, with koi ponds and rose bushes lining the courtyard. A waiter led us to a table tucked beneath an arbor. Nathaniel looked around approvingly, as if calculating the price of the meal. "You picked a good spot," he said smoothly, adjusting the cuff of his powder blue suit. He looked like he was about to pitch investors instead of sharing lunch with family. Emily beamed. "Mom always knows the best places." I smiled, steadying my nerves as I reached into my handbag. "Speaking of knowing things, I did have a chance to review the papers you gave me." Nathaniel's eyes flickered, but he leaned forward eagerly. And I pulled out Daniel's decoy disclosure and laid it gently on the table. "Here's my inheritance summary. $260,000 remaining after debts and legal fees. Not much, but enough for a modest retirement." The air shifted. Nathaniel froze for half a second before recovering with a smile. But I saw it, the storm flashing behind his eyes, the calculation already spinning in his head. That wasn't the number he wanted. That wasn't the jackpot he imagined. Emily blinked, confused. "Wait, what?" "I thought Dad left more than that." I met her gaze steadily. "Your father carried more debt than I ever told you. I sold the lake house to cover it. I didn't want to burden you." Her shoulders slumped, disappointment flickering across her face. Nathaniel reached for his drink, smiling thinly. "Well," he said smoothly, "at least it's something. With proper management, even small amounts can grow." I gave a polite nod, hiding the satisfaction bubbling under my calm surface. He believed it. Lunch carried on with small talk. Emily chatted about the honeymoon. Nathaniel told some exaggerated story about a concierge offering them a private yacht. I nodded, smiled, and waited for the performance to end. When the plates were cleared, Nathaniel placed his hand over Emily's. "We're a family now," he said warmly. "We'll figure it all out together." I smiled back, tight-lipped. But later that night the phone rang again. The bank, another suspicious attempt. This time it wasn't just an old account. Someone had tried to log into my digital profile using Emily's tablet. I set the phone down slowly. Nathaniel wasn't waiting. He was already trying to take what he thought was mine. And worse, he was doing it through my daughter. The next afternoon, Emily showed up at my house without calling first. Her car door slammed hard in the driveway, and by the time she reached my porch, her face was tight with anger. She didn't even sit down when she came inside. "Why did you threaten Nathaniel?" she demanded. I blinked, steadying myself. "Excuse me?" Her eyes were wet, her hands trembling. "He told me you cornered him, that you accused him of trying to steal from you. He said you called him a liar." My chest ached. Nathaniel was quicker than I'd expected. He hadn't just gone after my accounts, he'd gone after my credibility. "Emily," I said carefully, "I never threatened him. I told him I wouldn't sign anything without legal review. That's all." She shook her head, her voice rising. "You're spying on us. You're treating him like a criminal. Why can't you just be happy for me?" The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. I forced myself to stay calm, because I've seen men like him before. They charm, they flatter, and then they take everything. I'm not going to stand by while that happens to you." Emily's face crumpled with frustration. "You don't know him like I do. He loves me. He's planning a future with me. He wants us to be a family. Then why is he trying to access my accounts?" I snapped before I could stop myself. "Why is he using your tablet to do it?" She froze, her lips parting. "What?" The silence between us was heavy. I had said too much. I took a step closer, softening my tone. I didn't want to believe it either, sweetheart. That's why I left a document where he could find it. A fake one. To see what he would do. Her eyes widened with shock. You set him up? I protected you, I said firmly. I needed to know who he really was before he hurt you. But Emily shook her head violently, tears spilling now. This is insane. You're manipulating me, spying on my marriage, turning me against him. I reached for her hand, but she pulled back. Emily, please, I'm trying to save you. Her voice broke. No, Mom, you're trying to control me. She grabbed her purse and bolted for the door. Within seconds, her car was gone, dust rising from the gravel drive. I stood in the silence she left behind, my chest heavy, my eyes burning. For years I had feared losing her to grief, to loneliness, to the wrong people. Now I realized I might lose her to Nathaniel, and to his lies. That night I couldn't bring myself to turn on the lights. I sat in the living room, the glow from the street lamp outside the only illumination as I replayed Emily's words in my head. You're trying to control me. Maybe Nathaniel thought he'd won. Maybe Emily believed him for now. But I still had one card left to play. Daniel called me the next morning. His tone was sharper than usual. I pulled some digital traces from the bank alert. It was Nathaniel. Device ID, IP address, the works. He used Emily's tablet at the hotel. I let out a bitter laugh. So he thinks he's clever. He's not careful enough, Daniel said. If this ever went to court, we'd bury him. I rubbed my forehead. Court won't matter if Emily still believes him. There was silence on the line. Then Daniel asked, do you still have the wedding footage, the reception, the speeches? Yes. Why? Because arrogant men like Nathaniel always slip. He's the type who brags. Let me review it. Maybe he said something careless. After we hung up, I spent the afternoon combing through videos, professional footage, shaky iPhone clips, even short Instagram reels guests had posted. My eyes burned from the screen, but I didn't stop. I couldn't, and then I found it. A video from one of Nathaniel's friends, shot during the reception. The camera was angled badly, but the audio was sharp enough. Nathaniel stood with a drink in his hand, his tie loosened, laughter spilling from his mouth. One of his friends teased him. So what's next, man? Married rich? Nathaniel smirked and raised his glass. Not yet. Give me a month. You'll see. The group erupted in laughter. Nathaniel grinned wider, like a man who thought he'd already won. I froze the frame. My heart pounded in my chest. There it was, the smoking gun. I sent the clip to Daniel immediately. He called me back within minutes. This is gold. Between the bank logs and this video, we've got him pinned. But I didn't feel relief. Not yet. Emily was still blind to who he really was. If I confronted Nathaniel now, he'd twist it again. Paint me as bitter and paranoid. No. This time Emily had to see the truth with her own eyes. So I copied the video to a USB drive, tucked it into an envelope, and drove across town. At the sleek condo where Emily and Nathaniel lived, I slipped the envelope into their mailbox. Let him try to explain that. 2 days passed before I heard anything. I was standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing a plate, when gravel crunched in the driveway. Emily's car. She stepped out slowly, her face pale, eyes swollen from crying. She didn't knock. She just walked in, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. She sat at the kitchen table without looking at me. I watched it, she whispered. I sat across from her. The video? She nodded. He laughed, Mom. He bragged. I asked him, and he said it was just a stupid joke. But I checked his browser history. He's been searching how to bypass account authentication, how to access trusts, how to drain annuities. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I reached across the table and held her shaking hand. You don't have to be sorry. You believed in love. That's not a crime. But the moment was cut short by her phone buzzing. She glanced at it, her face tightening. It's Nathaniel. He says he's lawyered up. He says if I leave him, he'll sue me for fraud, that he has documents showing I used his money for the wedding. He says he'll ruin me. I took the phone gently from her hand and read the message. threats, screenshots of joint accounts, receipts tied to her name. He had been preparing for this all along. I stood, my chest burning with fury. Then it's time we end this. The next afternoon, Daniel arranged a meeting in a downtown law office. Glass walls, cameras in every corner, neutral ground. Emily sat beside me, her hands trembling, but her eyes sharp with new resolve. Daniel leaned quietly in the corner, a silent witness. Nathaniel arrived 10 minutes late. Black turtleneck, sunglasses, arrogance dripping from every step. He smirked when he saw us. "Claire," he said smoothly. "Emily, I hear there's some confusion. I'm glad you're willing to talk it out." Daniel slid a thick folder across the table. "Consider this a courtesy copy." Nathaniel opened it, casually at first, but as he flipped through the pages, digital forensics, IP logs, timestamps, screenshots of his login attempts, the smirk wavered, his posture stiffened. "There's no crime here," he said quickly, his voice sharper now. "You can't prove anything." "You're right," Daniel replied calmly. "Not yet. But this is enough to trigger multiple investigations: identity misuse, contract coercion, financial manipulation. And then, of course, there's this." He tapped a USB drive on the table. Nathaniel frowned. "What's that?" I leaned forward. "Your voice, at the wedding, telling your friends, 'Give me a month.' You'll see." For the first time, his face drained of color. He turned to Emily, but she didn't flinch. She slid a pen across the table. "You're going to sign an annulment," I said evenly. "You're going to release Emily from every account, every property, every claim, quietly, today." He laughed bitterly. "Or what?" Daniel placed another folder beside the first. "Or this goes public. The bank logs, the video, the story of a man who married for money. Reporters are already waiting." Nathaniel stared at us, jaw tight, calculating. But he wasn't in control anymore. Finally, he snatched the pen, scrawled his signature on every page, and shoved the folder back. Then he stood, shoved his sunglasses on, and walked out without another word. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room. Emily broke down, sobbing into her hands. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her like I did when she was little. "It's over," I whispered. "You're safe now." That night after the meeting, Emily came home with me. We didn't speak much on the drive. The city lights flickered past, but her silence said more than words. She had just watched her marriage collapse, her dreams crack apart in front of her eyes. When we stepped inside the house, she dropped her purse on the floor and sat heavily at the kitchen table. I brewed tea the way I always had when she was little, chamomile with honey, and placed the mug in front of her. She stared at it for a long time before finally whispering, "Mom, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know how I didn't see it yet." I sat across from her. "Because you loved him, because you trusted. That doesn't make you blind, Emily. That makes you human, Ben." Tears brimmed in her eyes. She reached across the table and gripped my hand. "I should have believed you. I doubted you when you were the only one fighting for me." I squeezed back, gently. "No more apologies. We move forward now." For a moment, the quiet wrapped around us. Then she lifted her gaze, her voice small but steady. "Is it true, Mom, about the money?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, your father left me $7 million. I didn't tell anyone because I knew how dangerous greed could be. I didn't want that shadow touching you." Her mouth fell open slightly. $7 million? I smiled softly. "Money can still build, but it can also destroy. It brings out the best in some people and the worst in others. I needed to protect you from that until you were ready." She swallowed hard, wiping at her tears. "No more secrets then. From now on, we face things together." I nodded. "Together." That evening we made a simple dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, a salad with too much dressing. We ate at the same table, where so much had unraveled. But now the room felt lighter, warmer. Emily even laughed once, when I spilled water on the counter. As the night drew to a close, I stood at the window, watching the moon rise over the quiet street. Emily came up beside me and leaned her head against my shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, Thank you for not giving up on me. I wrapped my arm around her, always. And in that moment, I understood. The true inheritance I wanted to leave her wasn't money but strength, the courage to see through lies, the wisdom to value love over greed. Because real love doesn't demand signatures. It doesn't hide behind contracts. Real love is patient, protective, and true. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept in peace.